Are you struggling with roadblocks as a woman in the challenging and constantly changing world of corporate America? If you feel stuck in your career, you may be holding yourself back and may not even realize it. Prepare to be enlightened by the meaningful discussions here at the No Woman Left Behind podcast. Each week, gather the insight you need to break down those walls of limiting beliefs. Unleash your full potential and unlock the leader within. Listen to raw conversations with corporate women as they share inspiring stories with the purpose of obtaining their dream career and living a truly fulfilling life. Here's your host, Rosie Zilinskas.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the No Woman Left Behind podcast show. I'm Rosie Zilinskas, your podcast host. Today we're going to be chatting with Sylvia R.J. Scott. Sylvia is going to be talking to us about her work with high school and college age women and how she encourages them to go into entrepreneurship. I think this is so key because I know when I graduated back in 1992, and yes, I'm dating myself, from U of I, there was no purview in my brain about entrepreneurship. I had no idea what it was or that I could even become an entrepreneur. So I think it is so fantastic that Sylvia is encouraging these young women, again, in high school and college age women, to go into entrepreneurship. She's also going to be talking to us about what they can bring to the table, as well as how branding can be so impactful in their careers. So let me tell you a little bit about Sylvia. Sylvia Scott is an author, mentor, and entrepreneur who has dedicated her career to empowering up-and-coming female professionals all over the world. She is the founder of Girls C.E.O. Connection and creator of numerous educational initiatives designed to teach, motivate, and prepare young women for successful entrepreneurial careers. Sylvia's career spans over 25 years and includes work in event coordination, public relations, nonprofit funding, and more, all in the name of supporting and collaborating with female entrepreneurs. I think this is going to be a fantastic conversation because it's a little bit off the beaten path of what we generally talk about, which is women advancing in the corporate world. And I think for women to become entrepreneurs right out of high school and college is absolutely phenomenal because they can become their own bosses and they can create the life that they love. So stay tuned for my conversation with Sylvia. Hey everyone, before we go into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that there is a free quiz that you can take on the nowomanleftbehind.com website. If you log on to the homepage and you scroll down just slightly, you're going to see a section that says, let's find out where you are in your career. If you click on the radio button that's called Take the Quiz, there will be a pop-up that comes up and it says, what's the key blocker in your career path? There are 3 key blockers that you may be operating under and you may not even know it. So if you click on just take the quiz, it's going to be about 10 questions. It really shouldn't take you more than 3 minutes. And then you're going to be able to get some additional resources just by taking the quiz. So remember, go to nowomanleftbehind.com to take the free quiz. Hi, Sylvia. Thank you so much for being here today. Now, you are very interested in helping young women up and coming. So they're entrepreneurs, they're young female professionals. First of all, why did you start Girls CEO Connection?
Because I had worked with an organization for several years that produced conferences for women entrepreneurs with high growth companies. And one reason they did that is because women don't go back usually to get an advanced degree when they start their businesses. And I watched how this empowerment that came from being a woman entrepreneur. I saw it in the breakout sessions. I saw it as they were talking with them. And then with college women, I saw the same thing, the empowerment that comes from being an entrepreneur. And knowing that when I was in high school, it's really was there in me. I mean, people say that in high school and in college, I was so entrepreneurial. And, in college, I wanted my own business and nobody was there to support me. So with the Girls CEO Connection, and it's Girls Creating Enterprising Organizations is what it means, was the fact of I want to see the empowerment that goes along, helps the self-esteem with high school girls and college women, and then women in the corporate world who realize maybe they don't belong there. It's not something, and that happened with me. And believe me, I loved my jobs, but I realized there was something more that I wanted to do with it. So, it was time for me when I did go off on my own, that more freelance work, or like with this women's entrepreneurship conference that I worked on for 2 years, but we did 5 conferences a year in the cities that had the highest population of women entrepreneurs. So that's when I realized there was something there. And then also I worked for the Center for Women in Enterprise in Boston when I went back to Babson to get my work on my MBA. And working at the CWE, it was the same thing. I saw women, what happens when they want to start a business and they're leaving the corporate world, or that they're, in college and they want to start a business, but they need guidance. And so Women's Business Center really helps them with things that they don't get in college.
Got it. All right. Well, you said a lot there. Now, as far as high schoolers specifically, obviously, so our podcast basically focuses on women in the corporate world, advancing in their careers, but obviously that looks differently for different people. So some people like yourself leave the corporate world to start their own businesses. How do you start that conversation with a high school young lady that is just trying to figure out who she is and what she wants to do? How does that conversation go?
I try to find out really what their interests are. And you can start with, what are you passionate about? And how do you see that passion coming around? Is it something that, like, I was so passionate about fashion and I had it in my mind I was going to be a fashion director at a major department store. Well, it never went that way. Even after training, it went into being an associate buyer. And there were a lot of different things I didn't realize that were going to go on with that position. But it's something about talking to them about, well, what really makes a difference to you? And when I was in California doing my Realizing a Vision conferences, which I'm going to get back to, I had girls that had never thought about being an entrepreneur. They thought about being a lawyer. They thought about other things until they went to the conference and they heard women entrepreneurs of all ages, in breakout sessions talking about what it was like as an entrepreneur. And the bell went off. They thought, oh, okay, I want to be a lawyer, but I can take that and move it around and start my own firm at some point. I can think about it and I can work for somebody to think about how to take those steps. The same in the software business. If somebody wants to work for a software company and then a startup, it gives them some experience, but then they realize, well, I really want to be doing this myself. And so you talk to them about it that way. Don't go into the corporate world. What you want to do and how do what steps can help you, gain what you want and where your passion is. And then what vision do you have? And start thinking about a vision. Don't just think about, I'm in high school and I don't know what to do. I'm going to wait. Start thinking about, what do you really want out of life and what do you like? What do you like to do? And take it in that direction.
Got it. And is the conversation similar with college women that are closer to entering the workforce?
For some of them, yes, it is. I've had young women in college from CU Boulder that were interns for me. And some of them said they had never thought about it. And one loved doing research, young entrepreneurs. Where could she find them? And wanted to learn more about them. And so that's what we talk about. What can you see? Now, some of them say, fine, I want to just keep going in the direction. And I encourage them to meet entrepreneurs on campus. I encourage them to take a class, on entrepreneurship. In fact, CU Denver is starting a whole they've really expanded into and CU Boulder about entrepreneurship. And this is something, and CU Denver, I just did an interview. I was working with the marketing director at the Jake Jab Center, and she said they're getting more and more young women coming in. When they can see what they can do, that's where I can only do this, I can only do that. But they can take some business courses with, when they're studying STEM, if they're really into that, and want to invent something. Well, that's an entrepreneurial spirit, and how they would market it, what they would do. So that's where I talk to them that way.
Well, I love that you're doing that, because I tell you, when I graduated, and this was 30 years ago from the University of Illinois, that the entrepreneurship just never entered my mind. And then I got so ingrained in the corporate world that I was like, oh no, I like the security of the corporate world. I like knowing that, I have a specific salary that I earn, specific vacation, that kind of thing. And it's only been like in the last 5 years for me that I'm like, oh, entrepreneurship is not as bad as I thought, in the past, but it's really nice to be able to provide young women that are just starting out in life with options. Because yes, they can go into the corporate world, and the corporate world is a great venue, but if they have options, and I know young people today, they really value traveling. And so you can easily travel and, as an entrepreneur, because everything is so remote these days versus, having to come into the office. And now in the corporate world these days, the employees are being asked to come back into the offices, even if it's like 1 or 2 days a week. So with those kinds of constraints, you can't really travel the world, but as an entrepreneur, you can. So I think that's awesome that you're doing that, and that you're encouraging young women into entrepreneurship. Now, when you talk to these women, and I know you do a lot of education for them. So what are some maybe education initiatives that you do that really resonate with these young women?
Well, young women are not getting soft skills. Soft skills meaning they're not learning how to communicate effectively with people or listen. That's something, it's listening and the communication. Listening is a big factor in communication, and what words to use and to think about, and mastering what I call is mastering your mind. Thinking about, what am I going to say so it just doesn't fall out, but listen to what people are saying. And when you write, people aren't taught really how to write emails without they get upset, just back off and let it go. Just don't say anything. And it was interesting. There's a young woman that I was talking to, and this is what I try to get across to people when they have an issue and they're starting to get upset, is don't, make a phone call. So they have to learn how to use their communication skills in more than one way. They can't just think, I'm just going to text someone. A lot of people don't want to do that. And how to leave messages. There's all these different ways that people are not taught in college or afterwards, unless they get a good mentor that will work with them. They may just get thrown into something, an executive training program, and they're not taught. They're superior. They're the person that they're responding to, say it's in a buyer, and you're in a training program. They're just going to expect you to know these things. So a lot of it's thinking ahead and just learning these soft skills and mastering your mind, and, hold back on your temper, hold back on what you want to say, and the different tricks about not saying things behind people's back. There's so many, what did somebody once say to me? You're going to go really far if you just don't sit and talk in the lunchroom.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Just don't pay attention to the lunchroom. But there's a lot of things that, developing the leadership within. What do you want to do? Learning your leadership skills. What are you good at? And thinking about what are your pluses that you can bring to the table, and just think about that. What are your what do you bring to the table? When I was going to Babson for my MBA class in statistics, which is horrible. They put me in that because I didn't make a great GMAT. If I passed that class with a certain grade, then I could go on. But, these people in college knew nothing about networking. They didn't know anything about networking. They didn't know anything about organizations and what's involved with them. And I ended up writing, like in a team, writing the papers. And it was one thing when you knew the stats, but it's another thing that you had to know the people skills, dealing with it. And so many people, and I know I was friends with the dean of the business school, and she said, I can't believe they don't know this. That please don't tell me. I said, it's true. They don't. They don't know about collaboration. And maybe you're to collaborate in a team, but maybe someone else has a better opinion than you do. And it's all listening to, but, working as a team and the collaboration, but networking. Right.
Well, and it's so interesting because a lot of times in college, there are a lot of group projects. And what the individuals don't realize is that that's a little bit of what they're going to need once they enter the workforce, whether it's in the corporate world or as an entrepreneur. You still have to collaborate with people to get things done. You can't exist in a bubble without any kind of collaboration. And as far as the trends, have you noticed any trends that young people, these young women, are looking for other than, of course, a job? But what kinds of conversations are you surprised about, I guess, when you're talking to these young women?
Branding. They don't understand branding. That's something I'm seeing that's really important. They don't get it. They aren't taught it. And they don't realize how important it is when they brand themselves, and that if they're still in a corporation, they're representing that corporation, how they brand themselves, but for their own business. Men have a certain way they dress. And a certain way they look. And people don't look at them as much as they do women with branding themselves. Like wearing a t-shirt that's too tight, wearing thinking you can wear flip-flops into the office, or thinking about your makeup or whatever it is. And I know there are girls that just can't stand it when you say something about their makeup. They just don't get it, that it does make a difference as a female. And that's something I see that college women need, young professional women need. How are they branding themselves when they want to speak to somebody? How are they coming off when they want, I tell high school girls, what do you think about if you're going to a friend's house for dinner and maybe their parents can help you, with college or someplace, if you want to start a business, their parents have contacts. Well, think about how you appear to their parents. How is it going to come across? That was really hard for a group of girls to get a grip on. And college girls are the same way.
Yeah.
I've been to sorority meetings that I think, oh my gosh, will somebody please talk to them about, they're not going on a date, they're going to dinner. They are not getting it. Right. And nobody's saying anything about it.
Now, for the people that are listening today, I think branding, to your point, it's not a new concept, but I think it is newer where people are more aware of branding. So I obviously know what branding is, but how would you explain branding to someone that has not been exposed to that phrase?
Okay. You think about it this way. And I remember somebody talking about this way. She took a Coke bottle, she took a Pepsi bottle, a Dr. Pepper bottle, and she had them on the table. And she said, now, when you see these, what do you think of? And how does that come across? That's the brand. Pepsi's the brand. And you think of it how, when the minute you say the word Pepsi, you look at how does the bottle look? What does their logo look like? Same with Target. How does it look? It may not be how does it taste yet, but when you first think about it and people talk about it, how does it look? So when you think about branding yourself, it's like, okay, what am I wearing? What am I doing? My actions that when people first see me, what do they think of? Do they think I'm serious? Do they think, and I sat in on some meetings in New York with that, dressing like I had on red, white, and blue, and it was all designer clothes. And then I get the feedback. The people there thought I was really straight. It made me look stiff. And that's not me at all. I was in the fashion industry and I realized I needed to loosen up a little bit. So, I tell them, like, if you're a jewelry designer and you come out in a corporate suit, people aren't going to think of you as a jewelry designer. If you come to a conference and you're a young person and you have on jeans and a tank top, how are people going to perceive you? And that's what it is. You are a brand yourself. So Sylvia Scott is a brand that people grab a hold of and think of me as my sweet spot being entrepreneurship and teenage girls and the business, and a conference I just did for Women's Entrepreneurship Day. I think there was a girl that I met, or I haven't met her, but I know of her. She's in Denver or in Littleton, and she's a little scientist. She was on Time Magazine's Kid of the Year. Now, when you see this girl, you know where her mind is. You don't see her in a pair of jeans and a fluffy bra. She looks very put together, but you can tell that she's got a mind that she's looking at doing something special just by the way she looks, and the way she acts. There's a young woman that started a business in high school, a makeup, skincare business, and she developed everything out of her kitchen. And when I saw her in high school and going into college, and she was competing with adults for money through an SBDC. She was competing with adults. And when you saw her in that respect, you knew she was serious about what she was doing and that she knew what she was doing. But now I see her as a young adult on Instagram. And she looks too provocative.
Oh.
And I think to myself, that's not the same girl as I recall. I don't think I'd want to follow her.
Got it.
I wouldn't want to follow her advice for skincare or for being an entrepreneur because of how she looks.
Right. Well, I like your comparison as far as what brand is. I like that you said, Pepsi, Coke, and Dr. Pepper. And what do you think about it when you see that? That, to me, I agree with you. That's the brand. Because with No Woman Left Behind, we cater to women in the corporate world who are advancing in their careers or who want to advance in their careers. And I think when people see that, they know that I am that part of the brand of collaborating with women and encouraging them so that they can continue to advance in their corporate career. So that's fantastic. I love your explanation there. Now, when you are working with these young women that do want to follow entrepreneurship, what kind of training or offerings do you have for them?
I really don't. Because it's all the soft skills.
Got it.
Now, they want to learn about negotiation and business plans and those hard things that they need. And even, doing a vision board, that's something different. And their visioning of what they want and talking it through. But if it's something like, I need to write a business plan or and I say, you need to take some courses.
Got it.
Now, you can take them through Junior Achievement, has some things going on. You're in college, check with your local colleges and to see if the SBDC, Small Business Development Center, is with your college or a women's business center is connected to the college, and look to see what, classes you can take, courses you can take, that even some extended education courses that you can take so that you learn that business side. Where can you learn your finances?
Got it. Yeah.
Especially where can you learn your finances and the importance of finances?
Right.
Women really think about that.
Right. I like that you made the distinction of more knowledge for entrepreneurs versus soft skills. And obviously we know that social media has really impacted the ability of young people to want to make phone calls. And I see it in my young adults. I have 2 kids. My son is 24, my daughter's 22. And as they were going through even like junior high and high school, if I said, make a phone call, they would be horrified. What do you mean make a phone call? Like, I don't want to make a phone call. So it is very interesting, the progression. And now when you see kids coming into the corporate world, sometimes these young adults that are college educated, that just graduated from college, you're absolutely right, don't know the soft skills. They don't know how to write an email. They don't know how to answer the phone. So I'm glad that you're providing those soft skills for these young women. So what other observations have you had, or, just realizations of this younger generation coming into, whether it's, the corporate world or entrepreneurship? Have you had any kind of, moments that you were like, oh, wow, this is how they're thinking, or anything like that?
Yes, I have. And it comes through texting. They are so used to texting. And I have had to go back and call and say, what did you mean by this? Or this is what's important. Really, as far as, it was funny. There was a young woman that asked me to have coffee with her. And she's in college. I think she's getting ready to graduate. And she has a nonprofit. She's from South Africa, but she goes to school in Denver. And it was after the Women's Entrepreneurship Day conference. And she came up and said, well, let's get together. And I said, well, let me just get all this taken care of, the finalizing and, cleaning up everything from the conference. And then I said, oh, here's where we can meet. Here's something we can do. I got back to her. I saw something going on in March, and it was going to give me enough time to be able to, meet her. And I thought she'd like to go this. And I said, and I'll let you know a few days in advance where to meet for coffee. And she just came back to me and said, well, I think we should meet here at this place. And it was at a university. And I thought, I don't want to meet at a university. That's not what I had in mind. And it was funny when I wrote back and got back to her and I said, I'd prefer not to go there for coffee. I just would rather go someplace closer to the event. It was a change makers event, and I'd rather go someplace closer that's in the area of downtown Denver. There's schools in downtown Denver. And she got back to me and said, oh, all right. And it was just this kind of a flippant response. And I thought, that's not quite right. You just don't do that. And I kind of didn't appreciate the fact that she just decided we were going to meet at this coffee shop and sent me an invite. And I see that where they just think it's okay.
Okay.
That's what they're going to do. They just take that initiative, but sometimes you don't take that initiative. I wouldn't do that.
Right.
I wouldn't do that at all. And I had some girls. Now, there's other things, and it was interesting after this conference, these girls said, oh, we have this leftover food. Let's take it to a rescue place. Now, most people don't think about that. And I thought, oh, that's a great idea. So they think about it in terms of social services sometimes and helping other people, which I do see young people like they're out of college or they're in high school, college, or they're out of college, the Gen Z, they're thinking about how to make the world better, which I really like. They're really thinking about, and they have no qualms about saying how they feel. Yes. And getting involved with how to make things better, which I really like. I see that more than ever than when I was in high school during Vietnam. And, we were fighting about the war, but, we didn't think about how to make things better like they are. They're thinking about the environment, about animals, about the whole world. And I really think I see that coming more and more through them.
I totally agree with. And I love that too. Young people I've noticed they have very strong opinions about things that they care about, that they're passionate about, which is amazing because I think that's going to hone the confidence that we need younger girls, even like little girls. I actually did a study, or I read a research study that girls' confidence peaks at age 9. And that's just so sad to me, that their confidence peaks at age 9. How is that possible? So we, like the work that you do, the work that I do, we're collectively trying to change the world through confidence, whether they're seminars or courses or just a conversation like this. If it can help a person, that would be fantastic. So now I know when you and I had originally spoken, you had mentioned that you wanted to take Girl CEO more internationally. What are the goals for Girl CEO?
Well, I want to see it. Like I do have some contacts. I have interviewed and met girls that she lives in New Zealand now, and we stay in touch. Unfortunately, what's happened in Afghanistan is not going to help. My goal of that is not going to be there. But Canada, reaching into Canada, girls that have, women that know girls in Canada and from college. That's another outreach there. And there's a lot going on. And it's interesting. I'm part of the Women's Entrepreneurship Day, and it's an international organization. And I just met somebody in Africa who's one of their new ambassadors. And she is talking to college girls about being ambassadors. And I told her I wanted to connect with her. See how she's doing that, because there's so much there where entrepreneurship really means a lot to them, in case sometimes more than in the United States. Yes, because that's how they can survive.
Right.
So that's where I want to see it. Not so much, it doesn't have to be Africa, but I like the fact that somebody's in New Zealand. She was in Tahiti, or not Tahiti. Yeah, she was in Tahiti because of her family. And then she graduated and moved to New Zealand. So we're still in touch. So there's different ways that I'm trying to network, to learn to where I can make an outreach and get introduced and bring people in. Okay.
So as far as Afghanistan, I know you said you wanted to go there, but because everything that is happening there politically, of course, that's not going to be possible. And by the way, that's just a horrible situation there where young women in Afghanistan that have been free their whole lives, that had some sense of democracy, are now back into, the cave ages where they can't go anywhere without an escort. They have to cover themselves. They can't go to school, which is an atrocity. So, I just hope that at some point things will change there for them. Well,
I know somebody that I've been trying to help get out.
Oh, really?
I mentored her. I mentored her a few years ago, and she had a great business. And then all of this started, and she missed, actually, I want to say missed the boat, but missed the bus. Get out of the country when they were supposed to be, they were able to, when everything was happening. And since then, it's just fallen apart. She's just in a horrible situation.
Gosh, yeah, I cannot imagine. Well, I wish her the very best. Well, Sylvia, thank you so much for everything that we have discussed. I would like to ask you, do you have 2 actionable tips that you could provide to these young women that are looking to either go into the corporate world or become entrepreneurs?
I would say, find a mentor. In fact, you could find a couple of mentors. And if you can do it, get a coach as well on the track that you want to go. If you want to go in the corporate world, find a couple of mentors on your own. Not so much that you could find mentors for the company you want to work for, but I would say find mentors, in your network, not so much people that maybe your family knows, somebody that will sit there and become a mentor. And it can be a man or a woman, somebody that you feel comfortable with. And look at coaching. There's so many coaches out there now. And think about how to get a coach and what you need the coach can provide. But mentoring makes a big difference. I would definitely say that. If they want to become an entrepreneur, find a mentor. I had mentors when I was working for major department stores. I had, and somebody that I'd worked for in the wholesale side. And it's wonders that she taught me how to dress, going for the corporate side of retail. There were just different ways that I talked to her in the, going forward. So finding mentors, and you don't have to stay with them forever. It can be just on a topic that you're interested, that you need help with. But, you can talk to friends, parents, if you're younger, but if you're, out of college and going into the corporate world, start looking around. See who your friends. What are they? You can have a younger mentor. So I would say look at coaching and mentoring.
Got it. And actually what your point about, well, first of all, coaching is for sure, I think is critical for people to have coaches, but the fact of having a younger mentor, that first of all, that's not new, but it also helps people like myself that I've been in the corporate world for 30 years. I learn from younger individuals too. So it's reverse mentoring as well. So obviously you're mentoring them on the ways of how to do whatever, because mentoring could look like a million different ways. But again, you're always learning from them as well. So I think that those are 2 great tips. All right. Well, again, Sylvia, so thank you so much again for this great conversation. I wish you the best with Girl CEO because you're doing really great work. And I love seeing all these younger women wanting to be entrepreneurs because it's definitely a breath of fresh air. Any final words, Sylvia?
I would really encourage everybody to expand on their toolkit. If you're in college and you're looking at the corporate world, take some classes in entrepreneurship, take some courses, expand your mind on it, and think about how can that benefit what you can bring to the table if you're going to the corporate world. Now, if you want to be an entrepreneur, look at, and say you're going into college or you're in college, look to see what's going on, where classes you can take and the topics that would be of interest. Or look for, if you're out of college, look at small business development centers and women's business centers. They're usually free. You can expand if say you're in a job right now and you want to move on and become an entrepreneur. See where the SBDC, small business development centers, are in your area, or women's business centers, because those places have classes and they're free and they have counseling. And so does SCORE. And they would be happy to help you look at how to expand into starting your own business.
That's awesome. And actually that SCORE advice is awesome because I use SCORE myself and they have tremendous amount of resources and they do have free coaching as well. So that's a fantastic tip right there. All right. Well, Sylvia, thanks again for being on the No Woman Left Behind and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Rosie. I appreciate it. It's good to see you.
I absolutely love the work that Sylvia is doing to encourage high school and college age women to become entrepreneurs. Through her conferences and through Girl CEO Connection, she is providing these young women with such skills and knowledge to go and become an entrepreneur. Again, I said this earlier, but I never even thought about becoming an entrepreneur at that age. And if you become an entrepreneur at that age, it opens up an entire new world for these these young women. Sylvia left us with a couple of tips. The first one, she said, find a mentor. And this is not a new tip, but if there's any young women that may have missed this tip before, we wanted to repeat it. Find a mentor on your own. It doesn't have to be within your organization. And it can just be for one particular topic. It doesn't have to be for everything. And you don't have to stay with a mentor for very long. The second one is obtain a coach. I mean, that's a given. If you hire a coach or get a coach, even if it's for free, they are going to be able to shorten the time frame for you to become a successful entrepreneur. She also mentioned organizations such as SCORE. SCORE are organizations that will provide you with tons of resources on becoming an entrepreneur or a business owner, and it's free. And they also have mentorship as well. So I think those are very good, solid tips there. All of Sylvia's contact information is going to be on the episode website. So go there to get all of her contact information. And with that, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Let these stories of self-encouragement and professional development serve as a guide in navigating through corporate America in the most practical and fulfilling way possible. Do not forget to subscribe to the show at nowomanleftbehind.com for more content like this. Leave a rating and share it with your friends because we want to make sure that no woman is left behind. Until I see you next time, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.